Rabbi Manis Friedman, hello. Thank God it's Tuesday. And what a hat. What a amazing.
Oh, yeah, it's from Moscow.
Are you in Moscow?
Feels like. It's cold like Moscow.
It's not cold enough for me, but I like it just a tiny bit colder. But it's okay. It's the weather is not according to Anna, so it's all right.
A little for everybody.
Yeah. Rabbi Friedman, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for allocating this time to give us wisdom and insights into so many things that matter today. And the life we live in is not a simple one at the moment. However, the topic that I would like to raise today is about emotions. I mean, if you look into I think everybody's favorite feature in the phone is those little emojis which express our feelings. So we have an emoji for absolutely every feeling that a person can possibly have. And this is how we express ourselves. This is how we relate to life. This is how we relate to each other. And this is all that life became about lately, or for a while now, is about the feelings that one has, and that is what identifies us, our lives, and everything we do. So, of course, especially lately, we have gone through a roller coaster of emotions, or are still going through a roller coaster of emotions. Anger, despair, uncertainty, fears, so much. I mean, there's negative, there's positive, but especially the negative ones are a little bit overtaking the world because of the state of the world. So, of course, I think it would be very, very important to discuss today how to best deal with feelings, emotions that we are experiencing these days.
Some people wear their emotions on their face. Whatever they're feeling, you see it right away on their face, without being very perceptive. Of course, if you're perceptive, you can see. But you don't have to be perceptive, because they wear their emotions on the surface. That's a lack of maturity, a lack of wisdom. It's the emotions are a little too artificial, too superficial, too much on the surface. They don't go very deep. It's the deep emotions that an emoji can't show. Those are the ones that we need to take seriously. And they're also positive and negative. So, listening to you speak Russian, I wish I had learned Russian from my mother, because, they say that people who speak with a British accent sound intelligent. Yeah, it sounds sophisticated, but Russian has a much deeper resonance. Anything you say in Russian is a little more impressive, because you're assuming that Russians don't talk nonsense. assuming.
Somebody once told me that when they hear Russian, they always think it's someone is cursing somebody out, someone is fighting with somebody. It sounds very aggressive.
No, it sounds very substantive. This is not fluff talk. This is real talk. Anyway, so what do we do with the emotions that an emoji can't properly display? Those are the serious ones. Those are the ones that don't just come and go. The ones that you see immediately on the face, 10 minutes later, it's been exchanged with some other feeling, and they just flit in and out. The one thing we need to be really aware of today the fear and the uncertainty. I mean, some people are taking full advantage of it, making sure that we are uncertain and fearful. But we knew already, and we've been talking about this for 2 years, you can't predict what's going to happen from today to tomorrow. So everything in life has now become like the weather. You cannot predict it. So stop trying. So the fact that we can't predict it is not frightening, and it's not a failure, and it's not a weakness on our part. The world is going through some adjustments, some realignment, and there is no way of knowing what's going to be tomorrow. The only question is optimistic or pessimistic. Well, if that's your choice, I think optimistic is a little more fun, at least for most people. So there are going to be some dramatic surprises. They're happening. It's unbelievable. But don't be surprised if the person you thought was the best of the best turns out to be the worst of the worst. And don't be surprised if the person you thought was the worst of the worst turns out to be the best of the best. Not only in politics, not only in the media, in everyday life. So the one thing we can be sure of is that there are going to be surprises. And that's good. That's good.
There are so many people who hate surprises because they're so uncertain. You never know what's on the other side.
Right. So the real question is not, how is it going to happen? The question is it going to be good, or God forbid not? For that, the answer is absolutely, it is going to be good. So now the surprise is not so scary. Maybe now you can enjoy the surprise. Because the point is, the world is getting better. But how it's going to happen? Wow. In a way that you never would have predicted. So now it's a double enjoyment. It's getting good and full of surprises. So it's like, you're going to have a birthday party. They surprise you with where and how and who comes. And so the world is definitely being sifted. You know, the farmers, when they're cleaning up the wheat, they have this sieve. It's a big flat surface. They put the wheat on it, and they throw it up in the air. The wind carries away the leaves and the junk, and the heavier seeds, the grain, falls back into the net. That's what's happening. So we're being tossed in the air, which is a little unsettling. But the result is that the bad stuff blows away and the good stuff stays.
Rabbi Friedman, but what about the anger that seems to be overtaking sort of the world? Yeah. I mean, there is.
There is legitimate anger. Anger that must exist, that must be. Because when you see evil, you have to be angry. If you're a moral person. But the anger is usually the surface release of underlying fear. You know, like a cornered animal suddenly becomes very aggressive. But it's fear. So I think it's more fear than anything else going on today. Because if you don't have your support system, if you don't have your belief that supports you, well, then you're frightened. And you don't want to appear frightened, so you put on an angry face. But really, it is fear, and the fear comes from uncertainty, and the uncertainty comes from the assumption that I'm supposed to know what's going to happen. But I'm not supposed to know. I'm supposed to choose between expecting good or expecting negative.
So how are we supposed to plan our lives, which is what we've been accustomed to doing always?
You plan it with the thought that things are going to be wonderful. I was talking to parents, mother and father, who have a child born with some serious problems. They haven't brought her home from hospital yet. And they're worried, they're asking how can they handle this, because they're doing new tests and they don't know what the test is going to show. I suggested that they stop thinking about the tests and start planning her wedding.
That's great.
Weddings are not cheap. You got to plan it out. They have to start thinking, we're going to dance at her wedding. That's called optimistic. Thinking maybe the test will come out positive, that's not optimistic. That's very short-sighted. You got to look at the big picture. That's the way to think of it. So how do you plan your life? You plan your life based on tomorrow, the world is going to be great, and everything is going to be the way it ought to be, certainly better than yesterday and better than last year. So make plans.
Rabbi Friedman, that's a great advice. I mean, I hope people can manage to do that. My question is still a little bit about anger, because anger is something that has been taking over pretty much the world lately. This is if I was going to describe any kind of feeling that dominates the world today, that would probably be anger. So my question would be, what would be the next logical emotion after anger?
Well, you got to identify the anger itself, because there are so many different flavors, like 32 flavors of anger. I would call it more insecurity. There's such an insecurity in people today that it all comes out in angry tones. But you know that when a person is insecure, when they feel like they're caught, they get angry. But it's not angry, it's just aggressive. Because you need to protect yourself from your insecurity or uncertainty. So it's really showing the vulnerability of a human being. We are not in control of our lives. We are not in control of the world. We are not in control of nature. And we're certainly not in control of God's plan. Well, is that embarrassing? Is that threatening? Is that a failure on our part? Not at all. Just that we're not used to admitting that we're human. Well, it's time to admit it. So let's do what humans are good at and stop worrying about those things that humans are not meant to be good at and never were. So we're a little closer to being honest, to being real, to recognizing human limitations and human potential. We can cause a positive vibe to the world. We can bring in belief, trust, faith, optimism, enthusiasm for life, which is very necessary today. If you're really worried about negative feelings, it should be giving up on life. That is scary. And people are giving up on life because they feel so helpless. They were always helpless, but they never faced it. They never admitted it. So we have to be very clear. What can we do, which is amazing, and what can't we do because it's too amazing? But nothing is negative.
Rabbi Friedman, but how can people flip their emotions? So they have this emotion, let's say, of fear. How do they flip fear and into enthusiasm, or what would be the opposite of fear? What would be?
That's a good question. The thing is that we've always assumed that humility is a weakness. People who are humble are meek. It's not at all true. It's not at all true. The strongest people, I mean really strong, not just aggressive, violent, and destructive. The really strong people are humble people. Humble people can't be threatened because they're not in a protective mode. They're not looking out for number one. So today, the antidote to all this frustration and so on is a little bit of humility. And humility doesn't mean make up something. Call yourself all sorts of derogatory names, even though, no. You don't make up anything. We are humble. We're human. It takes a lot of arrogance to try to deny that and make believe and convince ourselves that we're in charge, we got everything under control, we're going to force things to go our way. That has been our mistake for many, many years. Enough already. It's not so scary to admit that we're human. And it's not discouraging either. Because being human, we can do amazing things. We just have to know our limit. The evil destroys itself by not recognizing its limit. It always goes too far. Every criminal pulls off a perfect crime. Perfect. But he can't let it be. He has to do it again. And he has to do it better. Eventually, he's going to get caught. But if he would just let it be, the perfect crime is possible. Perfect criminal is not possible. So the criminal always returns to the scene of the crime. He always messes it up after doing it perfectly. So evil doesn't know when to stop because it's all ego-driven. You pulled off a perfect crime. Sit back, enjoy, give yourself a little credit for being perfect. Why do you have to mess it up? Can't help it. That's the nature of evil. So a little humility simply means recognize the reality of how powerful you can be and how limited you are. Both are true. And both are proper. It's not like it should be different. This is the right way. It's as it should be. If we let ourselves be as we should be, we could actually create a world that is as the world should be. But when we take on responsibility for things that are beyond our control and ignore those things that are within our control, then the whole world becomes that way, because we are the world. We are the world. The way we go, that's how the world goes. Even nature is affected by our behavior.
Rabbi Friedman, while we're on the topic of egos, I cannot not bring up last Sunday's Super Bowl, and the observation that absolutely everybody made is that in California, there is a definite mandate for all the children to wear masks in schools. Yet at the Super Bowl, none of the Hollywood elites, which is the California superstars, have been wearing masks. Where is the logic to it? What is this all about? Is this egos or is it something else? I mean, how do people come up with this kind of rules and positions in life?
Well, we could say very simply, you're talking about Hollywood. In Hollywood, it is much more important to look good than to stay alive. So, yeah, bring on the corona. I don't care. I have to look good. The makeup is on. I'm not going to hide it with a mask. Right, you could dismiss it that way. But the truth is, the masks is over. It's finished. That craziness is pretty much gone. Hanging on to it, and it just...
Rabbi Friedman, but for some reason it's gone mostly everywhere except schools. And those who are least likely to suffer from it are the ones who are suffering from it the most. Again, who is coming up with all these rules, regulations, and what is this based on?
It's, there's a little clip of a classroom in Israel where they took off the mandate. And the teacher announces they can take off their masks, and these kids rip those masks off so quickly, and they throw it into the air like they're graduating college. They were so thrilled. And then they looked at each other, and they never saw each other without a mask, for many of them. Say, oh, is that what you look like? I'm not your friend anymore. Yeah, part of the craziness. Nobody could have predicted this because it's Michigan.
Absolutely.
But it's over.
And that's very, very good news. Hopefully it's over, and it's going to stay over, not something that we're, again, no certainty.
Now we'll find out who created this craziness and why, who is responsible for this. Everything will sort itself out.
So looking forward to it. This mystery has been going on for a little bit too long.
Yes, we're slow learners. It takes a while to catch on.
Rabbi Friedman, how do we, going back to feelings, and the feeling of uncertainty is the second major feeling that everybody is feeling, anger, uncertainty. How do we flip uncertainty? How does one go about? Because we understand that all the feelings really come from intellect. We just don't really practice it. But realistically, we can change our feelings in our heads. What would be the proper attitude to take to stop feeling uncertain and feel certain and positive, I guess, would be the antidote to uncertain?
Well, the Rebbe, who set the tone for this generation in general, his overriding message for all the years that he was that he was bringing and teaching and writing. And the overriding message was, good stuff is happening. We're in the upswing, not the downswing. We've hit rock bottom with the Holocaust, and now it's up, only up. The world is moving upwards. The world is moving towards its perfection, towards its sanity, towards Mashiach. That's what we mean by Mashiach. So today, to be negative is simply at odds with the reality. Of course, there's still foolishness and nastiness in people, but that's on the decline, whereas goodness is on the increase. So chip in, pitch in, and increase the goodness. Get with the program. Worrying about the negative, that's old-fashioned. Those days are gone. There was a time when that was the truth, the reality, and you had to deal with it. So you had to be suspicious of every move, because there was evil lurking, there was evil going on and increasing, and you had to somehow find a way to stop it. But today it's the opposite. Just the reality in the world is now coming around to goodness. So why wait until the goodness is so obvious and so visible that there isn't much you can add? Now you can still add. You can get in on the ground floor on this project. So add to some goodness, because that's the direction we're going in.
Rabbi Friedman, but how do people add? I know we keep on saying this, but the more we speak about it, the clearer it becomes. How do people add on to this goodness? Because I got to say, I had few people who are not observant over for Shabbat this last Shabbos, and I spread your message. The world is getting better. And people look at me sometimes like, Anna, what's wrong with you? What are you seeing that we're not seeing? Like, look, we're witnessing it. Oh, come on. That's not what we're witnessing. Negative. Everything is pretty negative. Look, nothing makes sense. I mean, so I think there's still probably more people who think that than people who are positive about everything that is going on right now. So, Rabbi Friedman, how do we help these people change their perspective? Or should we try to do that? Maybe we should just leave everybody alone and they'll come around when they come around.
Now, having them over for Shabbos, that was a very positive thing. I think if you look at, you're looking for evidence of good stuff happening, there is lots of good stuff happening. But before you even get to that, where is the negativity coming from? Who's pushing negativity? You find out who's doing it and you know, okay, that's fake news. Why do they have to work so hard at negativity? Because it's not real anymore. It's fake news. It's scare tactics. It's like trying to hold on to the old system because it worked. Well, it's not going to work. The old system of intimidation and fear, and no, it's not going to work. So look around and see. Follow the evidence. Connect the dots. Who is pushing negativity? Oh, those people. Okay, you can't trust them. So that is the best proof. Look at what bad people are doing, and you know what the truth is. The opposite. So let's learn a little something. We're reading in the Torah about the golden calf. 40 days after God said to the people, You shall make no graven images. 40 days later, they make a golden calf and they dance around it and say, this is your God, Israel, who brought you out of Egypt. And what was the excuse? Moshe said he would be back in 40 days. He went up the mountain. He said he would be back in 40 days. The 40 days came. He wasn't back. That's it. They make a golden calf. They miscalculated by a day. The day that Moshe said, I'll be back in 40 days, he didn't mean to count that day, because that day was half gone. So they simply misunderstood. It wasn't even a miscalculation. But wait a minute. Moshe is late by a few hours, and already they're making a golden calf. Since when are Jews that meticulous with time? He said 40 days, 42 the most. Where did we become so precise? And also, you read the story and you got to close the book and say, wait a minute. Tell me a believable story. This is not believable. The Jews who never worshipped idols since Abraham, who were the pioneers of belief in one God, then they hear from God himself, you should have no other gods, and 40 days later, can't you pick a more interesting sin? If you want to sin because Moshe didn't come back, do something fun. What's with idolatry? There's got to be more to the story. This is just not. I mean, even a kid would say, "Oh, give me a break. This is fiction. This is not real." People are not that retarded. So here's the rest of the story. God came down to Mount Sinai and spoke to the people and said, "You want to know me? I need you to know me. So let me tell you about me. I'm a jealous God. I don't like when you serve other gods." We should have come away from that experience with an appreciation and an insight into who God is. But human nature being what it is, and the ego being what it is, I can imagine that there were so many people there at the time who were thinking, I am having the most incredible experience. I am standing at Mount Sinai. God is talking to me. This is incredible. Can't wait to tell my friends. My experience. Look at what I'm experiencing. Moshe doesn't come back. What do? I would understand, it would make more sense. Moshe doesn't come back. Now I have doubts. Was this whole thing real? Moshe must have died up there on the mountain. 40 days he hasn't eaten. He's not coming back. So the whole thing is not real. He wasn't talking to God. He was simply starving up there, and that's it. So now I'm not sure anything he said was true. It would make more sense if they decided that there is no God, forget about God, let's have a little fun, because what's the difference? But no. They create a graven image, and they proclaim, this is our God who took us out of Egypt. Will you stop with the God business? So what happened was, Moshe doesn't come back. So the Jews thought, at least some of them, we have to, now that we've had this experience, we have to define who God is. It's our job now. We are now really religious. We are now spiritual. We are now different and special. So now it's up to us. So they fashioned a god according to their own imagination and said, this is our God, the God of our making. In other words, in simple language, they were supposed to come away from Mount Sinai with an intimate awareness and understanding of God. Instead, they came away feeling religious. I mean, if you heard from God, what would you become?
Religious, probably.
Religious, spiritual, holy, I don't know.
Yeah.
But certainly something. You can't walk away from such an experience and still be the same person you were. That's a mistake. What have I become? That was the wrong reaction. I can't believe the experience I just had. That's the wrong reaction. It wasn't about you. It was about him. I met this woman, hadn't seen her in a while, and she joined our program. So after, hello, how are you? I said, did you meet the other teacher in the program? And this woman's reaction was, left me speechless. She said, yes, I met her. She loves me. I never heard anybody say that. Maybe people think that. But to actually say it, you met her and she loves you? Wow. What a confession. But that's the ego. So imagine people walk away saying, that was God talking, right? Oh, wow. I am so special now. Yeah, is that what you come away with? You just heard God say what he is all about and what he needs, and you walk away saying, do I look different? I've had this incredible experience. Give me a mirror. I want to see what I look like now. So it kind of fits the details of the story. They took their gold, threw it into the fire, and it kind of melted into the shape of a cow. What does that mean? It means we just went through an incredible experience, so what shape are we in now? That's the fatal flaw. What do you think of me now? Well, I really wasn't thinking about you now. We had just heard from God. Can we talk about that? So really, in simple language, we heard from God and turned religious on him. So we weren't doubting God, we were becoming God. Okay, we got it. Now that we've had that experience, we know all about God. So here's how you go about being godly. You throw your gold, which is your emotions, because gold and silver are love and fear. You throw your emotions into this fire of religiosity, and you come out looking like a cow. and you think you're divine. So we got to be careful not to do that. Can you hear God speaking and not change? If you're really listening, yes. Of course, on the inside, everything changes. But don't replace your personality with another personality. That's not supposed to happen. You're the same person, but more aware of God. But you don't talk to God and become more aware of you. That's pure ego. So, practically speaking, getting back to your question, what do we do with our feelings? Well, stop listening to the news, because the media is actually trying to control your feelings. I mean, it's so obvious, it's so blatant. Here's what you need to be afraid of now. Here's what's going to threaten you now. Well, all the commercials, by the way, even the innocent ones, they're all meant to make you feel inadequate. Do you have a problem with post-nasal drip? Is that ruining all your parties? And they show a picture of somebody at a party, everybody's having fun, but they're miserable because they can. It is all so undermining our self-respect, our dignity, every commercial. I mean, first of all, don't you dare be less than 20 years old, and don't you dare to be more than 25, because then you're out. You don't even count. Life only happens between the 5 years from 20 to 25. After that, you're finished. Before that, you haven't started. The whole thing is meant to undermine your confidence. Turn it off. Turn it off. Your feelings are not to blame, but you're so manipulated by the media, you don't even know what your own feelings are. You would be a completely different person if you lived out in the woods and had no access to communication. You would be calm, you would be thoughtful, you would be responsible, because that's who you really are. Exposed to all that garbage, you don't even know what you're thinking, what you're thinking. You know what they're thinking.
It's only now are we realizing how conditioned we were to think what we think, believe what we believe, and want what we want. It's just now we're realizing how much controlled we were by everything around us.
I mean, how many people have said to me, I wish I believed in God, but I can't. What do you mean you can't? Well, I wouldn't have who to talk to. Nobody would talk to me if I... Yeah. So, yeah, it's completely media-based, media-driven. What's popular, what's acceptable, or the fad. Even in thinking, there are fads. Everybody thinks like this, so you got to think like this. Actually, I think I mentioned this one. They were doing a survey on human sexuality. They were stopping men in the street. They were asking, how often do you think of sex on a given day? Most people tried to answer. One guy said, I have no idea, because you keep asking me about it. So I have no idea how often I would think about it. Stop asking me and stop bombarding me with sexual messages, then I'll figure out how often I think about it. But right now, I can't tell you.
Rabbi Friedman, amazing. Thank you so much. I'm always so sad when we run out of time like this, but I just want to let people know that if they miss you as much as I do, they can do the same thing I do, which is going to join your session, Unlock Your Potential, which starts tonight, and it's 4 consecutive Tuesdays. So if anybody is interested, and I strongly recommend it, it's goodtoknow.org, and we can have more of Rabbi Friedman also Tuesday evenings, not just Tuesday afternoons on Radio RUSA, which is always amazing. Rabbi Friedman, thank you so much for the positivity, insight, and just so much to look forward to. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I take my Russian hat off now? Thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you, Rabbi Friedman. Until next week. Can't wait. All the best.
If you enjoyed this conversation or this topic and you're looking for more information or you want to hear it again from another angle, there's a way to do that. And that is in this book. It's all there. Order it from Amazon. You can read it, reread it, and share it. I want to invite you to join us as VIPs, partners in our work, and join us also for a personal chat with other members of the VIP club. We talk about many things. There's an opportunity to ask, to respond, to make a comment, to meet the other supporters. And together we can really make a difference in Jewish life and in life in general. So join us. It's goodtoknow.org. Log in, call, make contact, and join us with the VIPs.